Okay, our next speaker is Sara Larsen. She's been interested in Western water for a long time. She started working in the State of Utah Division of Water Resources in 2001, went back to school for a master's in engineering, ended up at Los Alamos in the Western States Water Council. Now she works for the Upper Colorado River Commission as their deputy director and chief engineer. She works with the upper division states in the Colorado Basin, including Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming, and reclamation on incorporating remote sensing-based tools and best available science into their consumptive use estimation, including for the irrigated agricultural sector. More recently, Sara has been helping to implement consumptive use analysis at field scales in support of the Upper Basin System Conservation Pilot Program. So welcome, Sara Larsen.
Thanks. Thanks for coming. Just want to say this has been a fabulous conference. It's really cool to hang out with so many people who are interested in this topic, and it feels kind of celebratory in a way, like a major milestone that we've achieved. So congratulations to everybody on OpenET for a fabulous conference. Let's see if I can do this. And I'm going to apologize to DK because he's seen this a couple of times. This one's shorter. Yeah, and Jim Prairie. Okay, so this is a longish title. It's basically to just let you know how UCRC is using OpenET remote sensing tools at a basin scale, and then also, for overarching goals, and then also on the field scale for very meticulous or more detailed analyses in support of our water conservation program in the Upper Basin. Before doing that, I want to cover a little bit of the history about UCRC and why our transition to using remote sensing is so momentous. I think Jim Prairie set the stage this morning a little bit about their transition, how they worked with us to implement a very lengthy study on consumptive use, and then eventually, being very meticulous about that study, we're able to transition and select the EE metric method for use in the Upper Basin. We worked with them on that study, and the reason why is really important. So I just want to go over what UCRC does and kind of convey to you. He didn't go over this. He had kind of a staid, persona about it. But for us in the Upper Basin and the States, this is a huge step forward. So we're all like freaking out. This is really cool. The UCRC was created by Compact in 1948, and basically what we do is we work with the 4 Upper Basin states on any interstate issues. We try to, we're actually asked to quantify consumptive use for the 4 states each year, and then evaluate our flows at the Lee Ferry Compact point per the 1922 Compact. Basically what happens is we take a look at those flows and see whether or not we're in compliance. We are in compliance. If we are ever not, then UCRC is charged with going back to the upper division states and saying, hey, we're going to be deficient, or we are deficient for so many acre feet, and you guys have to implement a curtailment through your state engineer's offices to make sure that a certain amount of water comes down to Lake Powell, and we can make that delivery, quote unquote, non-depletion obligation to our lower basin colleagues. So it's really important to understand what's going on in our basin on a year-to-year basis, and we do have a time frame that we have to do that. We have to do it at least by April, Jim mentioned that, and make any findings about that if we need to. Another really critical piece of our mission statement is to foster comedy amongst the states. We do our best to try and facilitate some really great dialogues amongst our Colorado River State colleagues, both the technical and legal advisors, and then we do our best to try and curtail any controversy if we encounter it, like things that we foresee down the road are going to be critical issues. So we try to avoid that. Let's see. There we go. And lastly, one of our critical roles is just to do this reporting. So every year we put out an annual report. If you go to the UCRC website under reports, you can see a whole bunch of our annual reports. And in that document, we actually report our findings to the general public, to the President of the United States and the governors. This is required by our compact. Consumptive use information is really, really important. Up to just recently, we understand that this estimation is incredibly tricky. Each of the upper division states have their own ways of doing things, and we have a very, very different basin. The upper basin is topographically varied. It's a lot trickier to estimate consumptive use in the upper basin than it is, say, in the lower basin, which has flatter, drier, more articulation. You can tell where the agriculture is occurring. This is, of course, the largest sector of consumptive use for both basins, so that's what we're really looking at. And when all 4 of our states are doing this a different way, and even reclamation is doing it a different way, and we think ahead and we think, okay, if we ever have to do a curtailment, this is going to be really a thorny issue. How are we going to solve this problem? How are we going to sidestep litigation if we can? We need to try and solve it. So these are our 2 guys. These are like our 4 states. They're arguing. They're not super happy about how they might approach this thorny issue. And we have to go to reclamation and ask them, like, okay, what are we going to do? We have 4 different ways of doing these things, and this is Jim Prairie. And solve this issue. And he's like, okay, if you guys can't figure it out, I'm going to figure it out for you. It's not going to be pretty. Nobody's going to like it. So get yourselves in order. Obviously, that's not great. So back in, I want to say, we want to avoid that controversy. Back in, I thought it was 2011. Jim's saying it's 2012. We're not really sure. But we started this consumptive use study, phases 1, 2, and 3, to work on this issue together. And eventually, through the study, we're able to resolve some of those issues. In June of 2022, we put together a technical recommendation amongst the upper division state advisors to our commissioners to adopt EE metric and to basically follow the science. So on an iterative basis, review that set of information and see what everybody thought about how that was applying in the upper basin, knowing that this science is just taking off. It's like we're learning new things every day. Reclamation adopted that same method at the same time, so we have kind of this, universal approach to the largest sector. And the commissioners actually passed a resolution to affect this for all interstate purposes. This would include something like an interstate water conservation program. So potentially SCPP and potentially something like demand management if we end up having a program like that in the upper basin. So we're happy. This is great. We've resolved some controversy. Woo! To try and support that work, just really quick, this is a little bit on the side, but we want to continue to support the work at reclamation, and we also have access to some bipartisan infrastructure law funding that is really critical to continuing to extend that consumptive use estimation. So part of that program will be working on implementing some new EC towers around the basin, in addition to the 4 that Jim mentioned earlier. We're working on deploying more weather stations through the states, and basically putting in a bunch of instrumentation that we feel will really support the upper basin's drought contingency plans, which include things like DROA, drought response operations, and investigating demand management, developing tools that we think can really support some of the activities that are contemplated under the DCP. So, System Conservation Pilot Program. This one is actually really cool. So we've gone over the overarching umbrella. This is where we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty weeds. A couple years ago, Commissioner Tootin asked the whole basin, can you please figure out a plan for how to conserve some water because our reservoirs are reaching critical levels. We need 2 to 4 million acre feet a year to try and sustain things. And the upper basin responded to Commissioner's call with a 5-point plan. And part of that was to do BIL deployment and to really amp their water conservation for M&I sector, the kinds of things that like Las Vegas has been doing for a while. We're going to start working on some of those similar tools. We're also going to institute a system conservation pilot program. And it's kind of funny because this is a program that we've done before from 2015 to 2018, but we reinitiated it. And it's basically asking all different sectors, if you would like to conserve your water for this particular year, it's not an authority that we have to make you, but it's something that we would invite you to consider. If it would help you develop some resiliency tools, if it would give you a chance to install new equipment, would you like to participate in this program where you either fallow your fields for the year, or you can try, at low risk, you can try crop switching, or you can try a deficit irrigation strategy, or you can try just anything that is going to help build your resiliency by leaving water in our system as a benefit to our system to protect critical infrastructure, things like that. The program is funded by the IRA, and basically the four corners of the program is that the person must have a valid water right, they must have an established pattern of historical consumptive use. So we're looking back over their historical use and saying, okay, yes, if you participate in this program, then we're going to say that when you fallow or you crop switch or you try a split season fallowing, it's going to save or leave this much water in our system. We're going to estimate that as part of the program. And then we're going to pay you to participate in the program, kind of like Lower Basin has done this as well. It's a little bit controversial. Folks still kind of don't feel real great about it, but it is gaining. It's starting. I think it's starting to be viewed as one of those tools that we have in our tool belt in the Upper Basin, where we really have limited tools and things that we can do to try and support the system. When we do the applications with folks, this is in 2023 and now in 2024, we reach out to them, we say, okay, what kind of project fields do you want to enroll? Give us your GIS, or we'll help you develop your GIS. And then let's put that into the OpenET API and see how have you been managing your fields over the last 6 or 7 years, and what has been your ET and then your consumptive use related to irrigation, and therefore, on the average, what kind of conserved consumptive use can you use to provide a benefit to the system? And the reason this is so wonderful is that when we roll out this program, we can say to everybody, guess what? This is fair across the 4 states. We're using this unified method to do it. We're going to take your project fields, we're going to look at the historic use, and then run it through our process. And then the people who are in Colorado are using the same, or the people in Wyoming, people in New Mexico, folks in Colorado, or Utah, we're all using the same method to approach this issue. And the interesting thing is, as we've rolled this out, we've had mostly a positive response to us providing their historical consumptive use and also their potential conserved consumptive use as part of this program. There's some variability. Every once in a while we get a farmer who's like, well, I put at least 5 feet of water on my field in this acre, and your OpenET is only saying 1. And we're like, okay, well, we're taking out effective precip, and try and walk them through the process. But eventually as they learn about it, and they're like, oh, okay, they understand. And then we can provide them with that information and say, okay, this is what you're coming up with through this portal based on your historic pattern. And this is fair. And they can take that or leave it. They can decide whether or not that's reasonable to them, participate in the program or not. Same with the funding per the conserved consumptive use. So we pay people by the acre feet that they're estimated to conserve. And initially we had a lower rate for what we would pay, and then people could provide us a cost justification if they wanted to get more per acre foot. We learned a lot through that process. We learned a lot about how farmers do their business in the Upper Basin, and just gained a lot of, just a lot of lessons learned regarding folks' willingness to pay. I would love to actually pull some people into this to help us write the story of that first round of SCPP in 2023. Lily is smiling because she was our front person for Utah, and it was a grueling experience, but I think we learned a lot. We've gained a lot of traction with our water users, and really tried to refine the program, especially in 2024, to make it work for them. Interestingly, as people have gotten more familiar with the OpenET portal, especially in 2024, we've had fewer complaints about using it. We have more, especially in places where maybe it's a wetter climate and they have more effective precip, and so their irrigation values are a little lower. As they start to understand that, they're like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. I see how you've calculated this, and I understand, and I'm okay with it. So let me just walk you through. This is a very high-level approach to how we've done this for SCPP, both in 2023 and 2024, with some refinements. And this is like an example of what we would do for a project that is for fallowed fields. So not split season irrigation. It's not for crop switching. Those have different processes, but this is just kind of a high-level overview of what we would do. Step one, we would go through and look at their values for E metric for the past 7 years, so 2016 through 2022, and get the ET, and then go to a nearby field, download a similar set of information to get at the effective precip ET from effective precip, and then take that and subtract it from the project field's actual ET. So we're trying to get at, it's very simple, I know, everybody's a little concerned. It's a very simple approach to try and take into account local conditions, local climate, local weather, and then take that out of the actual ET estimate. From that, we develop an average of historical consumptive use over that 7-year period, and then that average value serves as the basis for their potential conserved consumptive use over the acreage of their current project. So, and then we do have a period or a phase where we can work with the client or the applicant on their application if they have some complicating factor like sub-irrigation that's going on nearby. We can adjust a little bit for that, but ultimately it's going to be UCRC and the upper division states and our contractor Wilson Water Group who's going to convey that information to the applicant and see where it lands with them. Take it or leave it. This is just a visual depiction. I had to kind of anonymize it last minute. Sorry, I had to do that. But basically, we're looking at project fields, outlining those, and then also picking an area that's close by to get at the non-irrigated effective precip. Making that month-by-month determination and coming up with a total. And then, you can't see that very well. I'm so sorry. And then coming up with an annual average for consumptive use for the periods that we're looking at for the SCPP timeframe. And then the average of their historical consumptive use becomes the value that we utilize as the basis for their conservation and for their payment. So we multiply that value times the acreage and the dollar amount to say, okay, based on all of these analyses, this is what you would receive for enrolling this many fields in the program. So pretty straightforward stuff. I don't have any more time to go over anything else, but
You have a couple more minutes.
I do? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I will say that the lessons that we learned in 2023, especially regarding consumptive use estimation, was basically a need to really spend a little bit more time on the methods and the process. We are currently documenting our experience from 2023, and we anticipate having a final report on all of these methods and things that we put together for SCPP in 2023 available on the Upper Colorado River Commission website at the end of March. That's our deadline to provide that information back to Reclamation. And at that point, I think we'll probably get some feedback on what occurred that year in terms of our consumptive use estimates at the front end of the year, and then also what we thought we would get out of our consumptive use estimates at the tail end of the year based on what actually happened and a retrospective review of the consumptive use that was evaluated over the irrigation season that each of the projects participated in. One good thing about this, after our little tour of the basin and trying to roll in all of those lessons learned and streamline the program, we have a lot more applications this year. So we had an application period up through December. This is a lot sooner than in 2023, so people could plan a little bit better. And got about 124 applications this year, as opposed to about what we ended up with in 2023 was about 64. So we have, I think, wider adoption, more familiarity. There's a little bit more social acceptance of the idea of enrolling in the program. And when we talk to people, they've talked to their neighbors and say, you know, it's you know, it's frustrating because they want to farm. They want to keep their fields in production, but they also can view this as a tool. If they have to go and fix a head gate or line a canal, this is a way that they can do it more easily. Or if they want to try something really unique to try and increase their resilience, they could try farming sainfoin, or they can try kernza or some other kind of forage crop that is new and different while minimizing the risk of trying something new and different. So that is really wonderful and impactful, and it shows in our agricultural sector especially more of an understanding of climate change and wanting to try and think ahead of the curve of what can we do to try and mitigate this so that our kids and our kids' kids can still be a part of the farming community and still be part of this really vibrant and wonderful rural economy. So we really hope that this is a good sign, and that people will you know, have good discussions about other ways to kind of sideboard future programs. If I don't know that we'll revive the program in 2025. It might be something completely different, but basically will help us understand and frame out the corners of a program so that we can keep this in place and benefit rural communities and mitigate some of the downsides that are the potential from these kinds of programs too. Basically that's it in a nutshell. It's a pretty amazing process. So thanks for your attention, and please ask any questions.
Very nice, thank you. I think we have time for one question if somebody has one. If you can step up to the microphone.
Sorry if I kind of, no. Hopefully I didn't jump the gun on that. Super interesting. I'm wondering, for some of your more nuanced projects that aren't just like a full field fallowing, how the OpenET process and the methodologies that you've been able to develop to define the potential for conserved water, how you're being able to balance kind of your time at the UCRC and the farmer's time with the methodologies for those more complicated and nuanced projects, like crop switching or
yeah,
that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the front end, we require an interview with our contractors to kind of understand what kind of project these folks want to explore. In the second year, there are a lot fewer full season fallow projects. There's a lot more interest in crop switching. There's a lot more interest in split season. So we actually have more of those kinds. And we have a path for what we do that's different from what I shared here. That was just, you know, very general for full season fallow. But we have a different path where we would look at what they've been using historically, and then what we think the new crop might try. Like if you're going to try kernza, what's the crop coefficient for that? And then subtract that out. Same with split season fallow. Like we would look at it on a monthly basis and then back out what we think you would conserve over a period of time where you're not irrigating versus your historical consumptive use, understanding that you have this residual well of water in the ground, so taking that into account as well for a split season fallow project. But you know, I don't want to go into a ton of detail here, but in the report that we're releasing in March, that will have step-by-step account for how we deal with those kind of more unique projects, which are actually becoming more the default projects because people still want to farm. They want to keep their fields in production. And if they can crop switch and still save water or try something different, this is a really great way to do that.
Great.
Does that help? Yeah.
Well, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Sarah.